Greetings, everyone. It's amazing, isn't it, that we're at the end of September. But what a beautiful month we've had, especially this past weekend, has been so amazingly beautiful, so much to be grateful for. I read an interesting article last week from the New York Times about Nick Cordero, the Broadway actor who lost his life to COVID-19. He had no pre-existing conditions. He was sick at home for about a week, then he entered the hospital. He suffered many grueling months, and his wife, Amanda, stated that she thought it was important to share with the public his struggle to stay alive in the midst of having lost a leg to this disease. But he died at the age of 41, and he was the father of a newborn. So Nick is certainly one of the tragic stories of this pandemic. His wife, Amanda, gave an interview to the New York Times, and she's going to be writing a memoir about this time in their lives, what she went through, focusing, she says, on positivity, on faith, and resilience. She says she's doing this because it's therapeutic for her as she begins to try to figure out how to continue on and raise this newborn. In the Times interview, she tells of her deep prayer life and her deep faith, and how she gained such comfort in going to church. She stated that she couldn't get through this without her faith and without prayer. I believe she speaks for all of us, that faith and prayer will bring all of us through these difficult and challenging days of the pandemic and so many other issues we face in our world. Amanda is certainly a great testament to all of us for this need of a depth of faith. She went on to tell the interviewer when he asked her, where he said to her, "You talk about accepting God's will, but that has to be hard now." And she responded, "It is hard, to say everything happens for a reason." And you're like, "Really? Like, why? Why, Nick?" she said. Then she goes on to say, "But there were so many times in the hospital or on a phone call, and I was talking to the doctors, and they would tell me Nick wasn't going to make it. They would tell me that he's got an hour or two left to live, and I would pray so hard because it's how I was able to help. And he would live, and he would fight, and he would hold on. But one of the times that happened, I was praying," she said, and this is what she said. She said, "God, thy will be done. I will never understand if you take him, but it isn't my will, it's yours." And she says it helped her stay in the hospital and helps her today. She says it's not that the hospital didn't do enough. It's not that she didn't do enough. She's basically able to say, which is very difficult, it's God's will. What an amazing faith. We all need this kind of faith during these challenging days. She writes about receiving a lot of help and positivity and prayers through the community. People supported her. She said Cedars Sinai would deliver boxes filled with things from people all over the world. She said, "I could stand over him and I would read card after card. We're praying for you. We've made this for you. My daughter drew a picture for you. Here's a frame of our favorite prayer." What an amazing faith, and what a tragic and traumatic ordeal, but she is surviving it because of her connection to God. I read that last week when our daily scripture readings were from the book of Ecclesiastes, that famous book where the one quote everyone has heard a number of times, "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity." The author, whose name is Koheleth, wrote 300 years before Christ, and he was writing about the meaninglessness of life at that point. Yet he does move on in the reading to say that there is a time for everything, a time to be born and a time to die. There's a time for joy and a time for suffering and sorrow, and we have to be able to deal with all of it. And then Jesus comes and he fulfills the Old Testament with the New Testament and tells us that life is not meaningless, as Koheleth was saying when he was talking about vanity of vanities, but we find our meaning by loving God and loving neighbor. So hopefully this pandemic is teaching us that lesson. Our purpose and our strength is found in love. This is what got Amanda through the traumatic loss of her husband and the father of their new child. She certainly experienced God's love through so many different people and through so much support from them. So this is where our strength lies. This is how we surrender to God's will. We do it together by supporting and loving one another, a love based in the love of God, in the reality that God will grace us with this strength that we need. And it certainly seems that God graced and continues to grace Amanda through the best of times and the worst of times. The title of that New York Times article was "He Never Quit," which he didn't. He never gave up. Let us not quit or give up. Let us struggle to deepen our faith and share it and share our love with one another. Have a wonderful week. Let us continue to pray for each other to be safe and healthy.